What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2003 Chevy Cavalier CNG. Up front is a 2.2 liter inline 4, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this here Cavalier for a couple of reasons, but the main one being the CNG. This car runs off of compressed natural gas. That's right, just like the tram you see at the zoo or the bus you see downtown, this runs on compressed natural gas, which is just the coolest thing in the world. These are super unique, super rare, super hard to find, so I'm excited to bring that to you guys today. But before we get on with anything else, I have a website, zackpradel.com, where you could buy merch like this retro sticker pack I have available for just $10. You could also submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me on the channel through a quick and easy submission form, and you can read my behind the scenes blog to see what I'm filming before I post it on the channel. But let's get back to that 2.2 liter Ecotec engine. Well, this is one of the first years for the Ecotec name in GM's vehicles. It's the standard regular Ecotec that they put in everything else. 2.2 liter, makes 140 horsepower, that's fine. But this car gets the special system for the compressed natural gas. So this car is actually technically a bi-fuel vehicle, meaning it can run and prefers to run on compressed natural gas. However, there's also a 12-gallon gas tank for regular unleaded fuel. There's a completely separate injection system for the natural gas, and the car actually decides when to switch over. When you run out of the natural gas, it will self-switch over to regular unleaded fuel, and you won't even really notice the difference. Now, there are pros and cons to having a compressed natural gas vehicle. The cons are that it is sometimes hard to find fuel. If you want an actual service station that will fill you up, they're few and far between. It also does minimize the trunk space. We'll talk about that in a second. And if you want to get the system fixed, if you have a check engine light or anything, this system hasn't been used in over 20 years. Chevy pretty much gave up on natural gas civilian vehicles after 2003. But there are some pros. Driving with compressed natural gas, you have about 20 to 30% lower emissions than an unleaded fuel vehicle, which is definitely nice. You don't really see an economical benefit. You actually get 1 mile per gallon less using natural gas. However, you're putting a lot less particulates into the air, which is a good thing. The fuel is also cheaper. Right now, in the crazy 2022 spring pricing, it's about $2 a gallon. However, the owner, Trenton, bought this off of an older man that actually had a hookup at his house. He just fed into his natural gas line for his water heater and oven and was paying approximately 8 cents per gallon. 8 cents per gallon, which is absolutely insane. And so these vehicles were mainly used for fleet vehicles. However, they were offered to the public in a $1,400 optional package, but they were mainly used for fleet vehicles because a lot of city vehicles run on compressed natural gas. So they already had the pumps. Might as well, right? Save the city some money. Downtown traffic saves some emissions. It was a win-win scenario, but for public consumption, it didn't really make all that much sense. I will read an excerpt from GM themselves when they were describing to dealers what this car was, just to give you a little inside baseball of this car. So this is directly from GM. This was actually from the 2001 Chevy Cavalier press kit for dealerships so they could get up to speed on what they were selling. And this is word for word what they said. Gasoline and compressed natural gas, CNG, power the bi-fuel Cavalier sedan, which was introduced in 1998. Its fueling system uses CNG first for an estimated 160 miles and then automatically switches to gasoline if necessary for about 400 miles. Using a patented hyperfill device, the CNG system includes a fuel tank which holds 6.9 gallons gasoline equivalent at 3,600 psi. This system has undergone extensive testing and meets federal safety standards and transitional low-emission vehicles (TLEV) standards in all 50 states. Available for fleet owners and retail sale, the bi-fuel Cavalier sedan is backed by GM's 3-year, 36,000-mile new vehicle limited warranty and can be serviced at an authorized authorized GM dealer and facilities throughout the United States. To accommodate the added weight of the fuel system, this Cavalier has an upgraded suspension system. The Bi-fuel Cavalier has many of the same standard items as other Cavalier models, including automatic transmission, anti-lock brakes, power steering, front driver airbags, blah, 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 blah. So that is the official press release statement from GM. And so now driving the Bi-fuel CNG Chevy Cavalier, how does it drive? That's the important thing. Well, it drives like a 2003 Chevy Cavalier. One of the very first reviews I ever did was a Chevy Cavalier from 2003, a coupe. Not a sedan, but a coupe. And so I can confidently say it drives pretty much the same as that. You don't really notice the switch over from compressed natural gas to unleaded fuel. You just don't. It happens simultaneously. With all that being said about the engine, paired to it is the regular 4-speed automatic transmission, and of course it is front-wheel drive like every other Cavalier. Mechanically, after the compressed natural gas injection into the engine, it's a normal Cavalier. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. We do have a couple CNG specialties in here. Well, in front of me, I have 5 gauges. On the left is fuel and coolant temperature. Then in the center, I have my speedometer, and on the right, I have my tachometer. On the steering wheel, I don't get any buttons. I do get a horn button, which is nice. But off to the left, this is the interesting and unique button. There is a switch for CNG and gasoline. Contrary to popular belief, this is not to switch the engine over from which fuel it uses. This is just for the gauge on the dash. So when you press it, it'll tell you how much CNG you have left. This, of course, was obviously just for the CNG Cavalier, which is super, super cool. I also have a gauge dimmer switch next to that and a vent, and on the door I have my latch to get in and out, manual mirrors, and manual windows. Like I said at the beginning, this was mostly used for fleet vehicles. However, it was offered to the public, but most of them were either base or fleet vehicles. Moving into the center, I have 2 climate control vents as well. Then I do have an aftermarket radio because every radio from the early 2000s was pretty much garbage. And down below that, we have the climate controls, fan speed, temperature, and where to send it. Moving on to the center console, I have a big cubby up front to put whatever I'd like in, and I do have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the CNG Cavalier. And of course, these tiny little guys failed the big friggin' bottle test. I didn't expect it to pass, but you gotta do it. Then we move down to the handbrake and the shifter. The handbrake is laughably thin, very, very thin here, very odd. And the shifter itself is very, very typical early 2000s GM. I've seen it in a million cars that I've reviewed, and it still works, which is nice. Then I do get a little cubby and a center console, and then we got to talk about the seats. The seats are finished in this cloth material that was made popular by GM in this era. It's so nostalgic to me. And honestly, before we talk about the back seats, just this whole interior up here is very, very nostalgic for me, because even though it's not a great interior, GM made pretty crappy interiors when it came to the plastics and rubbers and materials that they used. It's not great like that, but this is very much like if you've ever had a relative that smokes cigarettes. Cigarettes are bad for you. That's pretty fair out there, but sometimes the smell of cigarettes will bring me a certain nostalgia because of someone that I know that smoked, which is a good positive nostalgia, even though it's bad. This in here is like that smell. This is cigarette smell to me. It doesn't actually smell like cigarettes. It actually smells very pleasant in here. But that to me, it's that sort of, I know this shouldn't be comforting, but it is very comforting. That's how I feel about these interiors. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse. Let's go take a quick look at the back seats. All right, so we're in the back of the 2003 Chevy Cavalier CNG, and not a whole ton of space back here. To be expected though, this is a compact sedan. I'm not really shocked by it per se. The back seats themselves are decently comfortable. It's the same material as the front seats. They have a good amount of cushion to them. My knees are hitting the seat in front of me, but who cares? Head is coming close to the headliner, but who cares? It's a little Cavalier. Nothing really too crazy to note back here. However, if you do pull down these back seats, you can see the tank for the compressed natural gas, which is pretty sweet. Let's go take a quick look at the trunk, because that does matter here on the CNG Cavalier, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so we're on the back of the CNG Cavalier. Put it in here, open the trunk, and here you go. Here's the thing. This is your spare tire, and then this is the tank for the CNG. So there's no space in the trunk pretty much at all. You have a Miata trunk. This is a blanket. That's a first aid kit. That's it. That's all you can really fit back here. Now Trenton has a skateboard he puts back here. That's about the maximum of what you can do. This is a big downside of the CNG Cavalier, is that most of your trunk space is taken up by the CNG tank. Unfortunately, it does take up a lot of your trunk space. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and honestly, it looks like a regular Cavalier. This paint color is very special. It's called bright white. That's the name of the color. It's bright white. I mean, they hit the nail on the head, to be fair. I mean, Chevy really nailed it with the naming. It was either that or they just had black. They didn't even get a second word in that color. And there were other interesting colors as well, but they're not fun to make fun of. The only noticeable difference with the CNG Cavalier is at the back. You can tell because it has that extra little fuel door down below the left taillight or driver's side taillight, as well as it has a CNG logo on it. I assume this is for safety reasons and other reasons like that. And so with all that being said, let's get to my final thoughts here on the CNG Cavalier. Well, it drives like a normal Cavalier. It is, for all intended purposes, a normal Cavalier. Trenton, who owns this car, is not really a car guy. He likes them, they're cool. But he bought this just to commute to work. He didn't really know much about natural gas when he bought it. And so to everyone else, this is a very normal car, but to me, it is very peculiar. And the reason for that is because I really truly love this era of GM. Now, 2003 was the last year they offered this, but GM was really pushing the envelope in the late 90s, early 2000s. This really makes me remember the GM EV1. The EV1 was an electric car that they made that they leased out to owners in California. People loved it. It was a fully electric car in the late 90s. And yet, for some unknown reasons, they took that car away. They got those leases back and actually crushed them. There's a whole documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car. I highly recommend watching it. Very, very fascinating story of the EV1. But GM was trying all these different bi-fuels, EVs, hydrogen power, all in this era. They were throwing whatever they could at the wall and they were seeing what stuck. Obviously, compressed natural gas cars stuck a little bit better than EVs, at least at the time. But then also they offered flex fuel. They started messing with flex fuel, one of the first companies to actually offer E85 vehicles back in the early 2000s. And you could find that on like a flex fuel GMC Yukon and Escalade. You could also find hybrids. They were doing these hybrid big chassis as well. GM was really pushing themselves in the late 90s and early 2000s, and this is just another showing of what they could do. I believe in compressed natural gas. It looks great on paper, honestly. I'm not a scientist, but on paper, you get the same fuel economy and 20 to 30% less particulates put into the air. That seems like a good win. Plus, we all have natural gas at our houses for the water heater and stove, so could that have been an option? Why did these go away? Why don't we see new Chevy Cruzes that can run on natural gas? I don't know. I don't have the answers, unfortunately, but boy, is it fun to think about. And this is just such a cool piece of technology, something that I had never knew existed, something I had never seen before. And to me, that is something special. Huge thank you to Trenton for letting me take out his CNG Cavalier. This is so unique, so cool. I've been excited all week about filming this car, and I'm very happy to have it now under my belt. That's all thank you to him. His social media can be found in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.